All right. Good morning, Martin. Welcome to our session on exploring how marketing operations get things done. Good morning once again. My name is Marcus Duran, and I will be your host for today. I am a marketing manager over at Circonte, and today we're going to hear from three incredible trailblazers who are pushing the limits on what it means to lead in the field of marketing operations, right? So we're all in different industries, but there's a lot of common themes. And some of those topics that we're going to explore today include skills needed to be successful in your role, tips for tackling your toughest challenges at work, the role that community plays in your success. And I think we've heard this over and over throughout the conference. So if you're joining us in for the first time this morning, welcome. As part of this event, we just want to make sure that all the sessions that we're exploring, that people are sharing tips and tricks and all that stuff, want to make sure that we're helping you define what the future of marketing looks like for you, right? Nobody's the same. No organizations are the same. So take what we're going to share with you with a grain of salt, apply it in your own ways. And if you have any follow-up questions, Dan, Jaime, Shonica, we're all going to be, Shonica, excuse me, we're all going to be here on LinkedIn to make sure we get all of your answers, all your questions answered. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and launch a quick poll on what skills do you think are the most important to succeed in marketing operations. So in the right side of your screen, you guys should see the polls tab. Please go ahead and let's see if we can share. We can share right now. Okay, great. So again, we have 5 options. Do you think product and technical knowledge is what takes the cake? Do you think people just need more imagination and curiosity? Are project management and delegation of work your biggest obstacle? Or is it having the technical chops to do data analytics and reporting? Or is it more of the soft skills of understanding and leading people that are the key drivers for succeeding in marketing operations? So again, that poll is open. Feel free to give us your option, your answer, and we will be back to that in a couple of minutes. So with that, we want to thank our sponsors for helping put this event together and obviously funding it. So again, thank you for all they do. And we just saw some of them compete for the demo jam stencil winning, just in case you missed that session. But today we have 3 amazing panelists. Like I mentioned, we have Jaime López over at Avon, Senior Director of Marketing Operations. We have Shonica Mitchell at BrideDrop, Global Marketing, Automation, and Community Manager. And finally, we have Dan Prokop at Hike 2, Director of Marketing Operations. Shiny new title, Dan. So thank you for joining us. With that said, I'm going to let Jaime, Shonica, and Dan come on and just kind of give a little bit about themselves. So we'll start with Jaime.
Sure. Hello, everybody, and thanks, Marcos, for the intro. I'm really honored to be here with like all 4 of us. I think I'm in an amazing company. My name is Jaime. I'm based out of Helsinki, Finland. So you can probably, well, you cannot see it in my background, but it's a lovely winter night with some snow on the ground. And my job at Ivan, which is a data platform company, is to make our marketing ops run, basically. We are about a 500 people company, and we make the backends of the applications you trust and love on your daily basis.
All right, Shonica, let's go ahead and go with you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Shonica Mitchell. I work for BrideDrop, which is a startup under the General Motors umbrella. I run our global marketing automation and social channels. So just being charged with getting that up and running for our startup. It's been an exciting time to kind of be able to be an original architect for, the overall structure of our marketing automation strategy, as well as our social strategy. So thrilled to be here and looking forward to the panel today.
Thank you, Shonica. Let's go ahead and go over to Dan, who again, fresh new title, Director of Marketing Operations. However, he's been in it for a long time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Dan?
Yeah, thanks, Marcos. Hi, everybody. Dan Prokop. I am at Hype2, which is we're a Salesforce partner that has broad capabilities, combining data, AI, design thinking to help companies really extend what they're able to do with the Salesforce platform. Yeah, as Marcos said, I was just recently promoted to Director of Marketing Operations. I've been an in-house marketer, mostly in the manufacturing industry. For most of my career, started with Salesforce back in 2013, and shortly after getting involved in marketing automation. And yeah, so I came to Hype2, tried out some of the consulting side of things before, just really getting excited to kind of organize what we're doing from a marketing side of things, and came into this role recently. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome to the three of you. Thank you again for joining us. So all three of the panelists and myself have run into each other all of this year at Dreamforce, at Connections, dreaming events, you name it. We see each other, we hear each other, we see each other on LinkedIn. It's a great opportunity to have them all here, and hopefully you guys in the audience feel the same after you hear all the amazing things that they will have to share. So just like we wanted to be able to produce like a marketing operations guidebook for everybody, right? So how many of you wish that with the day that you showed up, right, that your number one role was clearly defined, number two, that there was this book that was just handed to you and say, here's everything you need to do and when to do it? It doesn't exist, right? It doesn't exist. All of us have been there. Yesterday morning during our opening keynote, we heard from 6 trailblazers who were user group leaders, or consultants, or managements in consulting managed services, Salesforce admins, and we heard their origin stories. And one of the trends that we saw throughout that keynote was literally nobody started where they are right now. So there is no guidebook, right? If you're blessed to be in an organization that like you came in, your role was clearly defined, and you had this book, count your blessings, because this is definitely not the trend that we have seen, over the last 5-10 years in the industry, even this year. And I think it has put a lot of people to the test, especially during the pandemic, where all of a sudden everybody was in the office. People can just show up to your office, knock on your door, and ask you to send another email, to pick up on social or whatever. And now we, after that, we move into this more digital first world where companies are having to very quickly put together documentation, very quickly having to identify who are their key players to keep the lights on, right? So today, as we go through this panel or this discussion, take notes, because we're going to help you build your own guidebook, okay? So one of the things that a lot of the times I don't like about this types of panels is like, okay, like what are the insights, right? Like what is it that Shonica, Dan, Jaime are really going to bring, so I can say, hey, I attended Mar Dreaming, this is what I learned, right? And I can check this event off as it was successful, I had a good time, and I'm coming back next year, right? So what we did is we created essentially just like a personal assessment, right? So everybody at home, right, we're going to share the slides with you so you can build your own assessment and your own playbook afterwards. But essentially, the question was, one of the first questions was, what have been the top 3 assets, skills, or resources that have helped you move forward in this career in marketing, right? So we're opening it up a little bit in terms of not just necessarily marketing operations, because a lot of people just start as part of marketing and then develop into this more specialized technical role of marketing operations. So we already went ahead and answered this from our 3 panelists. And so we're just going to go ahead and give you at least their answers, right, to these. So Jaime talks about, the numbers game, the ability to learn, presentation and communication. Shonica goes ahead and shares, you have to keep learning, right? You have to make sure that you're keeping up with everything that's happening in Marketing Cloud, Salesforce, etc. And you want to make sure you align on that terminology and understand that the metrics that matter, so you can look good in front of the people that need to look good. And then Dan also talks about having that growth set, right? Continuing on the same thing that Jaime and Shonica are saying, making sure your database storytelling, right? How to tell the story, not just say, hey, we had this open rates or this click through. Like, what does that even mean for the business, right? And then being proactive versus reactive. So Jaime, I'm going to start with you and then just kind of move towards the right here with the panelists. But what color can you give our attendees today based on the 3 kind of attributes, your formula for success?
Yeah. Thanks, Marcos. I'm going to start saying that I could also sign on the dotted line of what Shonica and Dan kind of wrote there. I think they're amazing takes. My own personal spin on this is that numeracy separates great MOPs people from good MOPs people. Not being afraid of numbers, not being afraid of code, and being able to push your own boundaries. In order to show results and to measure results, you often need numbers, quantitative methods. The second point I wrote there, ability to learn, it has a lot to do with what I think is the hallmark skill of marketing ops, which is solution design or solution engineering. It's something that us MOPs professionals do a lot, and not necessarily every other discipline of marketing or sales has to do. We often have an impossible puzzle in front of us, and we have to figure out how do we assemble these pieces that are not meant together to do something they were not meant to do. So ability to learn forces or kind of helps you find a solution or a compromise when that solution is not evident. And people can do hands-on work for you, but nobody can learn from you if you don't learn. And the last part, presentation and communication, again, separates good from great. And it is a necessity when you progress in your career as an individual contributor to make your contribution seen, but also as a manager. I always believe that we have a duty to our people and our teams, and you have to be able to coach them, but also to present their results and communicate their results and their impact to a wider audience so that they can shine too.
100%. Thank you for that, Jaime. Shonica, you want to go next? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, no, I love that feedback. I completely agree, and I'm aligned on that. I'm going to highlight just 1 or 2, because I think 2 and 3 kind of go hand in hand. I would say align on that terminology. It's really important that the sales team's terminology and your terminology and marketing are the same, because if you're talking about 2 different things, it's just going to end up being a mess and really confusing to the team and to a detriment to the work that you're doing, right? I think we all want to leverage and highlight the lift that it takes to create what we're doing in MOPs. So making sure that terminology is aligned is something that I do at the end of each presentation. We just have a list of definitions. We go through some examples, but it's almost like a boilerplate. It's a constant mainstay in each presentation that we do. The second is understanding the metrics that matter based on your audience. So if you're talking to C-suite, they're not going to care about your open rates. Unfortunately, we're really passionate about it, but we need to speak to and think about the audience and what they care about and what helps them move the needle. So they want to hear more about ROI, things like that. So making sure that you understand your audience before you go in with and these decks and presentations and these analytics take a long time to put together. So I've seen teams before get really prepared, go really deep dive, but we're presenting to C-suite and it's an overkill, right? So sometimes, if we're not in that space, our sales team, things like that, our C-suite, they can get drowned out by a lot of the noise. It's too many charts, just doing too much and giving that overkill. So
yeah, thank you for that feedback. And Dan, your second one is actually database storytelling. So could you elaborate on when Shonica just went ahead and shared with us?
Yeah, I mean, so from my perspective, being able to get to the point, and I'll kind of overlap with like the proactive versus reactive, because like you mentioned before, Marcos, coming into this career from more of the, like my career path came through marketing communications. And so I was doing a lot of like graphic design and web design and that kind of stuff until I became an accidental admin, because I was being proactive with, raising flags about, hey, we need the data to be able to market to our audiences, to understand our audiences. And so a big shift in my career happened when, I kind of ended up falling into this position of specifying, okay, let's move to Salesforce, let's, implement marketing automation, all this kind of stuff. And so what I really noticed, and what I guess I would highlight for the database storytelling, is starting anywhere that you can to be able to simplify the data. Like it's not enough to just kind of gather the data. You need to be able to simplify the data, to Shanica's point, like understanding who you're sharing this data with to be able to tell the appropriate story. And for me, this was like early on, it was as easy as just how I laid these things out in a slide deck format. Instead of just sharing out Excel sheets and stuff, it was really like, how do I create some sort of visual to organize this, to simplify this, and being able to start seeing the impact of like just different audiences within the company, leadership recognizing that, like, oh wow, this stands out, this is impactful, it's helping them understand things in a way that they didn't before. So yeah, I think that's really where I saw some big leaps, I guess, is where I started being proactive and being able to tell the story and visualize.
Thank you, Dan, for sharing your insights there. Back to our poll. The question was, what skills do you think are the most important to succeed in marketing operations? Our audience right now, the winning option is imagination and curiosity. Does anybody want to react to that before we move on?
Yeah, I think it does encompass like not just what the three of us said and what you introed us with, but also the stories of the three of us. I don't think anybody, not Shonica, not Dan, not me, thought we would be here doing what we do. And the one thing that has brought us here is being open to whatever our imagination kind of serves as on a silver platter. And I think that's common to a lot of people in MOPs, and it's a brilliant career and a brilliant value to have.
Yeah. I mean, the theme throughout, all of us talking about in different ways and highlighting different aspects of that ongoing education kind of thing. And with a growth mindset, to me, it's just like seeing a challenge and being excited to solve it. And so, yeah, having the curiosity and wanting to dig into that is huge to help, propel your career.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next slide here. But if you guys haven't, let me close that poll. If you guys haven't heard, Salesforce was included in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for B2B marketing automation platforms. I'm tossing the link in the chat if you're interested. You can also find it later in the marketing resources tab on the top left navigation under the Salesforce room. And they have some other great reports in there. But just wanted to spend just a little bit of time. I know that's microscopic, but the last bullet on the top right quadrant is Salesforce. And that's the quadrant that you want to be. So a couple of statistics that we took away from this report: 73% of leaders are going to be defined as B2B marketing technology leaders. Have a marketing automation platform, right? I would argue that probably if you were here today, I would say it's probably close to 99% of the people that are in this event have a marketing automation platform, but again, you know, they're sample. 57% of those leaders believe that AI, specifically generative, would have a high or an extremely high levels of reward if they were to use it. So this is about sentiment, right? Like they hear it, they are drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And they're hyped about it. But at this point, they just know that they would love to use it. They haven't done anything with it. And then the last thing here that we had is 59% of those same leaders say that, hey, I have my stack, right? I have account engagement or Pardot, right? I have maybe Marketo, HubSpot, or even Marketing Cloud engagement, excuse me. So many engages, right? So I have my stack, but like I don't have the right people on this team that can really like push what we can do, right? So maybe they can just do email, or maybe they can just like design or do copy, right? But there's not somebody that has those technical skills to really, you know, work with the APIs, develop, do AmScript, do, you know, other things. So as we dive into some further questions, and I think Shonica, I'm coming for you here with our next question, but you know, those are some really interesting statistics. And so moving on to the theme about skill set, right? Like you guys being managers of other people, you have been managed in the past, you know, by somebody in marketing in IT. How do you react to that statistic about the lack of skills on marketing teams to fully leverage what a marketing automation platform can do?
I'd argue that two things are really at play here. I think the first thing is I'd really love for our partners in marketing to really do maybe a little more homework on the variety of jobs and skill sets and requirements under each different tenet of marketing, right? Like of digital marketing, right? So like your paid media and or inbound person is going to be definitely different than your marketing automation person. But understanding the differences between those, because I think one thing I'm definitely seeing at play here is that we're being asked to do too many things and we're stretching our teams too thin. I'm pointing to things like job descriptions on LinkedIn where it looks like a job description for like 10 people, but it's one role. It's and pages and pages and lists, and it's analytics, it's content creation, it's campaign orchestration, it's inbound, we're doing way too much. We need to dial.
Like
yes,
20K.
I was just about to say it's a 90K job description. So we need to do a better job, and our partners in marketing, I would love for them to try to just get a little more understanding of the variety of things that can get accomplished on a well-defined, well put together org structure for some of these digital marketing teams. I think the second thing that is at play here, and Mark Good, I think, did an excellent job of outlining this yesterday in his presentation, is that AI is here and we need to get on board. I think we're going to see a wider skill gap and we're going to fall behind. And I think because of the rapid evolution of AI, if we don't start to get on board with this thinking, be the early adopters so that we can be the subject matter experts, I think we're going to see a much wider skill gap and we're going to get left behind. So I think, you know, I heard Jacob say this yesterday from Sir Conte. He said, evolve with the tech. And that's what I walked away from. I think we need to make sure that we are making it part of our plan, right? So if we're thinking through like our strategy for the year, make learning and development part of that strategy, put it on the roadmap, and then allocate the budget to make sure that maybe you're a company that doesn't have a ton of money, but if there are things that you can do, maybe it's just blocking out time on your team's calendar for one day a week where they can have an hour to get on Trailhead or do some type of training. Maybe you are a team with a larger budget and you want your team to migrate to a data cloud. then put the money and the time aside for that team. Make sure that's something that you protect, and then allocate that so that the team can get the skill sets that they need.
Yeah, 100%. And we're seeing preach, girl. That's right. We're seeing all sorts of gifts.
Yes.
The chat, so
I
keep
love
them
it.
coming.
Thank
Kara,
you.
we're gonna try to get to your question towards the end. So, but I'm gonna try to morph it here a little bit. So, Shonica, when you guys gave us kind of like your three assets, resources, types of things, it was almost like 50-50, right? It was how do I build myself up, right? So I can bring other people with me, and so that I am technically like available to be able to support the business and do that type of things. But then the other half was how do I massage all of this technicality and make it so when I'm talking to people, they don't share like a blank stare, right?
Yeah.
Like you just went over my head with
Yeah.
all this information and I have no
Definitely.
idea what you just said. So
Yeah.
I guess as somebody who maybe not necessarily even starting, but just somebody who has been, let's say, a year, in this kind of role.
Yep.
What would be your recommendation? Like, should they be spending more time on the technical? Is that going to get them ahead further, or is it going to be really those people skills to be able to translate those requirements, to be friendly with people, to be able to push back and say, we can't do that request this week, we have to push it back next week? Like, what do you think? I know there's a balance, but do you feel like there's one camp that's more important than the other, or do you think that somebody needs to be really well-rounded?
I'm going to be really helpful here and say it's 50-50.
Okay.
I think you can do a couple things. So like one of the things I try to do, especially if I'm talking to a non-technical audience, is I use, to Dan's point, storytelling. So I'll use a use case. You're standing at a trade show. You want to get leads from that trade show. And we'll walk through an example based on what I'm trying to get to in my specific objective. The second piece I would say is create a template for yourself so that post-campaign efforts, you can pull that audience back together and talk through the metrics and what happened and the lift. So think through like everything you did before the campaign, what happened during the campaign, and then what happened after. So here are some of the things we saw. Here's some of your benchmark data. Here are some things that we could maybe do in the future. And it's super simplistic. Like, you should not have a ton of graphs. Think through, if there's one takeaway I want my audience to walk away from, what would it be?
100%. Yep.
So
I know as we're going through the slides, everybody, we're not like being prescriptive, right? We're not telling you what to do. But I think what we're trying to make sure everybody gets at is like, these are the questions that you have to ask yourself, right? You have to ask yourself as a leader, right? Who is in the marketing squad, or maybe you're not being led, right? Like maybe you're a specialist that you're on a team and there's not really clear direction from the organization or leadership. These are the types of questions that like you need to really explore for yourself, regardless of what role you're in, for you to have a clear mind, right? And maybe that means shifting roles within the organization. Maybe that means moving to another company altogether. Or maybe that means like taking some accountability for your own career, regardless if you're managing up or you're managing down, right? And having this tough discussions with like leadership, with your manager, which I know it's easier said than done, but nobody's going to have them for you, right? If you're not vocal. And in that spirit, we're going to move on to the concept of transparency, right? And talking about that leader, right? I'm going to start with Jaime. I've known Jaime across like 2 companies where he was in the leadership role, helping his team grow. So good that part of his team followed him to his new company. So like there's that. But Jaime, let me put you on the spot as a leader. How do you manage challenges with your team, right? Like those could be product specific, those could be resourcing, people challenges. Give us a little insight here.
Yeah, this is a great question. And yeah, I think kind of the timing is great. We were actually just discussing with my team and with other leaders at Ivan, like how to frame this. And I think there are two key elements here. The first one is that as a leader, you have to foster a good amount of psychological safety in your team. Your team needs to know that you have their back and that they will mess up, you will mess up, but you will have them back. You will be there for the cleanup. And that I always tell people that when I hire great folks, I have to be ready to lose great folks, and I have to be ready to write them an absolutely sparkling recommendation letter wherever they want. And that they're not going to lose the job because they messed up. We all do. I'm going to be there supporting them when they inevitably do mess up. So starting with that, psychological safety, super important. Nobody's going to be punished for doing an honest job. And the second part is to separate the problem and the person. I think this is what it's the easiest to get wrong. You end up in a very tricky situation. I know something has broken, a campaign failed, your webinar crashed. All right, that is the issue. And we discuss and fix the issue. The person who works in my team, who I care for, they're separate. And I won't blame them for an issue. I won't take it out on them. We will first fix the issue. And then we will do a kind of a no-blame post-mortem and figure out, okay, where did we go wrong? How can we make sure that we don't go wrong next time? So I would leave maybe those two things as main principles. Separate the issue and the person and foster a good amount of psychological safety in your team.
100%. And I think I'll speak for myself. I've definitely been in those roles where like you are scared to like even say that you messed up, even if it's something small, because you just feel like it's gonna turn into a snowball. And I think that's a skill that it's a muscle, right? That you have to grow, and you have to be able to frame the issue, and you have to kind of come with some solutions or some suggestions to whoever your leader is. But 100% agree with that sentiment, Jaime. Dan, do you have any additional insights you'd like to share with everybody?
Agree 100% with Jaime. Great points there. I guess I would expand and add on that, just when you have these challenges with, like, in my experience, kind of getting back to even the previous question with Shonica's response, like, people always want to do more with less. And so to me, like, one of the big things is just having that process for prioritization, ruthless prioritization. I think that's key. And really getting back to like thinking about it in terms of like, what is marketing operations, the people, the process, and the tech. And so, kind of going like, I kind of go through those as a checklist of like, do we have the right people? Are the people that we have skilled appropriately? Do we have, what are our communication processes? How frequently are we communicating? Are we using, like, for us, we'll use like V2 Moms as part of the planning process, having quarterly rocks, like getting, again, back to proactive versus reactive, so that that you're prepared for these things and everybody's on the same page, so that when you have these challenges, you can easily, to Jaime's point, like take the person out of the equation and just look at the facts and come together as a team to solve the problem.
We also use V2 Moms at Cercante. It is definitely a process trying to move to to a framework, especially if you hadn't done one before. But if anybody's interested in like setting goals as a team, as a company, V2 Mom, I would stand behind that framework. I think it's pretty good. Salesforce has a trail that you can take. It's like 30 minutes probably at the most, to help you get started. Salesforce also does V2 Moms. So, you're seeing it from smaller organizations, from big companies. So If you're not familiar with that terminology, something to Google for sure afterwards. We're going to keep moving, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the tech, right? So AI and you. So based on this Gartner report, we heard that 1 out of 2, I'm just going to simplify it that way, 1 out of 2 of those B2B marketing technology leaders say that, hey, AI can probably do a lot for us. And some of those benefits could be things like helping us personalize content and offers, right? We talked about yesterday at the Margimings about personalization perfection, right? The right message at the right time. Marketing automation and customer journey orchestration. Again, back to the Margimings, we're hearing from Veterans Guardian, architect 73 journeys to help 84,000 veterans get the help that they need across the U.S. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I'm not familiar if there's like, maybe there's a couple of steps per journey or whatever, but just the mental headspace or putting it on paper to design something like that. And then lastly, we talked about it at the beginning, simplifying those numbers, that analysis of that customer data, right? So these are the benefits that those B2B marketers are hoping or seeing when they're starting to experiment with AI. So Jaime went ahead and gave a presentation with Adele, his coworker, at Dreamforce earlier this year. And he also gave us a presentation on Wednesday. I'm thinking back, it's a Monday, Wednesday, about AI and how you can use it with account engagement and different ways to leverage it with the tech that you already have. So Jaime, I'm going to address this question to you, but essentially, how do you either in your personal life or at Avon use AI today? And how have you incorporated it into your learning goal map, right, for this year for moving forward?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Like, the first answer is a resounding yes. We use AI today, and we're very happy to show that and to inspire others to do so. And to also demonstrate that you don't need a huge investment or time and effort. Like, literally, my demo took me $10 of OpenAI credits to build. So we use it in many different ways, but I'm going to go back to the topics that we touched upon earlier in the panel and say that it's an amazing catalyst for curiosity. AI, and in particular generative AI, is to MarTech what the printing press was to books. You can progress much faster, much deeper using it. For example, when I was creating my presentation, I was doubting myself onto how to write an abstract for this or how to write an outline for a presentation. I used an AI to generate an outline for the presentation. Then I remember that Pardot has published a new API version 5, and I wasn't fully familiar with how that worked. So I asked ChatGPT to write me a query for the API. And that started to solve problems right away. Then I asked it to classify job titles into personas, and it also does that very well. So the amount of use cases is huge, and many of them are very approachable. Are problems you know how to solve today, but you don't necessarily want to be solving them manually every day. Then the second question, is it incorporated into our new learning goal roadmap? Yes. So my team at Ivan is the most advanced in using AI, and we are responsible for showing the way to the rest of marketing and sales on what and how AI can be used. We have a few cases already in production, and more are coming. And I have transmitted the expectation to my team that everybody should invest some time into developing use cases for their own area. Why do I say this? We have a policy in place which everybody is expected to use 10% of their working time for learning and development. So everybody has about 4 to 6 hours a week that they're expected to devote to learn. And this is one option on how to use productively your learning hours. And we see that it works. Like, we have seen people from design, from MarTech, from training, from enablement, from web coming to us and showing, like, look in what I used my learning hours last week. I built the solution based on a commercially available AI model, and it works. Should we deploy it? And the response from marketing leadership has been very enthusiastic. So I encourage everybody to do that. Block something in your calendar, 2 hours a week, and just see, what can I do that I couldn't do before? Or what can I do more efficiently, more effectively with AI?
100%. And just remember, don't throw any personal information into ChatGPT or anything like that. But you can do so much with it. Yeah, to get started. So go sign up for Bard, for ChatGPT, whatever. Play with it. Do a knockoff email address if you don't want it to be assigned to you, whatever. But go and experiment with it, because until you feel it, you touch it, you do stuff with it, you won't really know. We have about 5 minutes left, so we have one more question. Throw some questions in the Q&A in the chat. We may have 1 minute to answer one of those, so feel free to do that. But we're gonna move over into more of that soft skills area of marketing in general. So thinking about moving up, thinking about moving to the right, to the left, to a different role within your company, to another company. Places to network, right? Within your organization, you have Slack teams, right? Microsoft Teams. You have sponsor groups. You may have volunteer events or customer meetings or internal meetings. External to your organization, you may have events like Mar Dreaming, right? You may have just social media in between, your days, or maybe you're on Trailhead, or maybe you have the ability to join a local group. Those are opportunities that everybody has that you can find on trailhead.com. They are free, right? You just have to know where to find them and go. But Shonica, one of the things that I've appreciated about meeting you this year in person has been just the way that you throw yourself in a room, make sure that you have really good conversations with good people. So I wanted to make sure that we share some of those insights with our audience. So my question to you is, how do you network effectively? I think that's the key term. And then how do you get started if you have never been in these rooms with CMOs, VPs, salespeople before?
So I really try to do three things. I try to make it part of my agenda. So if I'm attending connections, I'm making time to do connections. I'm looking at the agenda. I'm looking at some of the people that might be attending those, or some of the companies that are there, or maybe they're some of the integrations that I may want to use. And I'm looking at what I might need from a personal or professional perspective. And then what am I doing for my personal brand and growth? So I'm trying to serve those two purposes. And then secondly, just being intentional. So it's one thing to run through a room and scan everybody's badge and connect with everybody on LinkedIn, but it's another thing to really connect with somebody. And a lot of us are talking about our career path. So maybe that's something that you could use to connect. Maybe you had a similar path, or maybe you have seen somebody on LinkedIn that you just resonate with and you want to meet them in person. And so you can use that as a nice conversation starter. But making sure that you're being genuine, being intentional. And then if there are things that come up during that conversation, make sure you follow through. So if you're, volunteering to help for something, make sure you follow through and do that. So that you really do make that, just kind of rounds out that being genuine and intentional.
100% authenticity. If you're not authentic, people can smell it a mile away. So I very much appreciate that. We went ahead and just launched a quick poll or a quick survey, so if you guys can give some feedback to Shonica, Dan, and Jaime about the session, that'll be great. We have some key takeaways. So we have soft skills and technical skills. I meant to say equal, not greater than or equal to, but both matter equally. Being transparent, never stop learning, and networking is just essential. Regardless if you're a specialist, if you're a director, if you're a manager, and very quickly, we do have some additional sessions on marketing operations coming up. Be sure to check those out later today. And then we'll have some recordings of Jaime's session. In case you missed that, those will be available early next week. So again, thank you to our sponsor for coming. Thanks for each and every one of you for attending today. And that's it. We're out of time, but make sure that you connect with Shonica, Dan, and Jaime on LinkedIn. They are super friendly. Don't be afraid to network with them. And then please give us your feedback on that survey. With that being said, we'll see you at the keynote in a couple